Kia ora. Hey everyone, it's Smarty here for my Timeless Beginnings Wave 2 review. I'm going to look at all the cards. I am going to say what I think about all the cards. That's roughly the format, nothing super exciting. The patch notes went live 5-ish hours ago, so my takes are not going to be particularly deep, but I hope to do my best nonetheless. I'll also talk about some of the cards that were changed in the patch. A lot of the Abyssian Shadow Creep cards were, and some other hot topic cards were changed, so I'll talk about them, and generally just sort of excited to get into it. If you don't know me, I'm the winningest in terms of money Duelyst 2 player, and generally a lovely personality, if I do say so myself. Let's get into it. So, first things first. Lionar. We always start with this one. And we're going to start with a card that I believe is the best card in the expansion. It's funny that it's the first one. I sorted each faction by mana cost, so this isn't like me cherry picking. And it will also give me an opportunity to explain a new keyword that has been put into this expansion. So, 2 mana artifact, Dynasty Standard. It's epic. It is timeless. So timeless is a new keyword which says this artifact doesn't take damage on your turn. So you can equip it, you can punch things. I think there are other artifacts where we can really properly discuss the impact of timeless and what it means, but I don't think it's super important for this one. So let's get into the effect. After you cast a non-zero cost spell, a spell that costs more than 1 or more mana, summon a recruit behind your general with attack and health equal to the cost of that spell. So what this means is, if I have this artifact equipped and I play a Martyrdom, I get a 2/2 behind me. If I have this artifact equipped and I play a Circle of Life, I get a 5/5 behind me. So what this card means is that it is going to, if it sticks, and Timeless helps it stick, going to print a lot of value for any Lionar deck interested in casting spells. If I cast a Holy Immolation with a Dynasty Standard equipped, I have paid 2 mana for a 4/4. That's pretty good. If I do anything better than that, if I even make 2 2/2s, this card is phenomenal. And it's trivial to get that much value from Dynasty Standard. I think this card is totally ridiculous. There's, in my eyes, basically no way it even makes it 2 weeks from now, when we have our big Epic Series tournament. And we'll see how that ages. This is just my, here we are. It's the best card in the game. Possibly. Notably, some Lionar decks don't play that many spells. Stuff like the sort of super fast tempo decks. And they might not want it, but I think what this card existing means is that you stop playing those in favor of versions that want to play more spells, because this is a really strong incentive to put Circle of Life into your deck. Yeah, so expect Fatigue Lionar, or it won't be Fatigue anymore, because it will be beating you up with a tide of 4/4s and 5/5s. Good stuff. Oh, actually, I should note, you can move after you've summoned your first guy to summon a second guy. Just worth thinking about. It's not like a once per turn thing. Yeah. Next, Daybreaker, a 4 mana 2/7, which is a pretty odd stat line. At the end of your turn, if you've played at least 3 cards this turn, and give allied minions +1/+1. I think this card is pretty cool. There's another card, Cataclysm, which rewards you for doing the same thing, except it kills all the minions. It does 5 damage to them. This is sort of a pull in the opposite direction. I think this suits Lionar a lot better, and suits playing cheap cards a lot better, because a lot of the cheap cards you're playing are minions, who will then get buffed. I'm not confident it'll be good. Augury makes it a lot better. It reminds me of Songweaver, where you just want to do a lot of things. And Songweaver can't proc unless you've played 3 cards this turn. So if you're proccing Songweaver, you're proccing Daybreaker. If it gets 1 proc, it itself is a 3/8, which is a pretty ridiculous stat line, and it'll buff up the rest of your board as well. I think Daybreaker is probably not going to see like an enormous amount of play, but if it does, it'll be phenomenal. and it's more like a question of the engines around it. Giving the buff at the end of the turn is kind of sucky, because you want to buff your minions and then punch things with them, and this guy won't buff any things that are getting traded off in this turn. Worth thinking about. But yeah, Daybreaker, pretty happy with it. Next, Avatar of the Zenith. This version I have here is missing a word, confirmed with the devs. It is a 6 mana 4/11 with whenever a unit is healed, put an Afterglow into your hand and summon a 1/3 recruit on a random nearby space. Afterglow is a 1 mana spell that says heal an allied minion for 2. Allied is quite an important word here, remember it for later. So, the stat line for this is pretty big. 6 mana 4/11, probably, like, it's not good enough as a vanilla, but it's really hard to shift without using direct damage, like, without using specifically hard removal. Reasonably close to impossible. If you're doing 11 damage that easily, you're probably just killing your opponent, right? So, it's really hard to shift. And, whenever a unit is healed, get a heal spell and make a 1/3. So, this card can heal itself back up, and poop out a bunch of 1/3 dudes to surround it. It can enable your other heal synergies. It's insane. This card is also ridiculous. Play it in Lionar. You don't even need to be Heal Lionar. If you're playing Healing Mystic and Sundrop Elixir, put this in your deck. If you have an Isby's Monument, it gets 2 procs per turn. That's pretty messed up. Playing this on 6 after playing an Isby's on 5 is like, I'm going to get a 4/11, 2 1/3s, 2 spells, and if you don't kill it, I'll get 2 more. That's a lot of replace fodder. It might actually clog up your hand too much, is something I'm just sort of thinking about. That's pretty funny, but I'm sure you can manage. This card's absurd. I also want to note, an infinite combo that can be done in the mirror. The Heal Ionar mirror. If your opponent has a Sunriser in play, you'll note that Sunriser does 2 damage to everything around it, all enemies around it, whenever a minion is healed, a unit is healed. And you have a Mana Forger and an Avatar of Zenith in play, you can get something damaged, heal it, so you say your Avatar is next to the Sunriser, you heal the Avatar, Sunrise will proc, dealing 2 damage to it, and you will get an Afterglow, which lets you heal it for 2. Because Mana Forge is making your spells cost 0, you can keep doing this to print 1/3s surrounding your Avatar. If you have any heal proc, you can get that arbitrarily as many times as you want. This means you'll kill people with Sunriser, or Light Chasers will get to, you know, several hundred attack. And it's just sort of a funny thing. I will be playing at least 1 Mana Forger in all of my Heal Lionar decks, just in case I run into the mirror and get a chance to do this, because it's pretty funny. Yeah, Avatar of Zenith, also incredible. Almost as good as Dynasty Standard, and that's really saying something. Eon-Bound Phalanx, not Skybound Phalanx, is a 6 mana Lionar spell that says summon a column of 1/3 recruits. And recruits are just vanilla. There's no... I should have mentioned that last time, actually. Recruits have no text. They cost 0 in case they get bounced, but otherwise are totally plain. This card takes up a lot of space. I'm not sure it'll see a massive amount of play, but it's a lot of dudes, and if you have ways to buff them, like a Daybreaker somehow, or just, like, Skywind Glaives, I think you can really get stuff done. It's really hard to retreat if your opponent is, like, you know, they've got a bunch of dudes in front of you, and then they play Eon-Bound Phalanx behind you. It's going to be hard for you to get out. Even 1 recruit surviving is kind of a credible Holy Immolation threat. So I could be wrong. This card could be fantastic. It's hard to evaluate. I think it's unlikely to go in the best versions of Lionar decks, but it's still pretty cool and quite strong. Worth giving a try. Next, we are going to head into Songhai. So, Songhai has a 0 mana artifact with Timeless. This means the same thing as last time. It doesn't lose durability on your turn. 0 mana artifact with Timeless is pretty good. That's a very low commitment, and it's going to be reasonably difficult to remove. The effect is relatively minor. It's at the end of your turn. If you've played a minion and a spell, draw a card. Songhai's pretty good at this. Songhai likes drawing cards. The only thing is that the first card you draw with this is like replacing the Sensu itself, right? And you're getting it a bit later, so that's sort of negative value. Once you've drawn a second card, it's pretty good. And once you've drawn a third card, it's incredible. So it remains to be seen how well you'll be able to keep your artifacts. But I think generally this is pretty good, especially in Songhai, because people usually are too busy dealing with your other shit to punch your face to break your artifacts, unless they really, really have to. It's one of the reasons that Blood Rage Mask was so strong. So, yeah, good card. I think it'll see play in the sort of spellier high decks. Next, we have Thief of Moments. A 2-mana 2/3 with after an ally attacks, put a blink into your action bar. Blink is a 0-mana spell that says this card cannot be replaced and disappears at the end of your turn. Teleport an allied minion up to 2 spaces. This is a 0-mana spell. Remember that. I will talk about it later. So Thief of Moments itself is a 2-mana 2/3 with a really strong ability, because you're usually attacking, you know, as Songhai, at least once. Getting a free spell every turn gets a spell proc, even if it's not a super valuable spell. You know, you can use Blink to get things done. You can hide Tuskbores, you can hide Thief of Moments after trading into something. Really versatile card. I'm a huge fan. I'm pretty sure it goes in all the Songhai decks. It's a spell proc. Like, you know, you play Spell High, you stick one of these, and then on 6 mana you go like Tuskbore, hit, 4 wins, blink your stuff away. Bam. You know? That's pretty high tempo, pretty nasty. Okay, it's later. I was gonna maybe save this for like later on in the video, but I think I should really get it out now. Thief of Moments is a 2-card, infinite damage, well, part of, I should say, a 2-card infinite damage combo. Here is the combo. You play a Flame Acolyte, which is a 5-mana 3/6 with, it's an Arcanist, with, whenever you cast a spell, summon a 1/1 Spellspark? Yeah, with Rush on a nearby space. You play this Flame Acolyte in such a way that every single place it spawns a Spellspark on will be able to attack the enemy general. You attack with something. You play a Thief of Moments as well, to be clear. You attack with anything, you get a blink. You cast this blink, you can even use this to position your Flame Acolyte better. After that, it will summon a 1/1. This 1/1 should attack the enemy general. When it attacks, you will get a blink. You can use this blink. You can skip the effect if you want, you just need to cast it. You will get a 1/1, which will attack the enemy general and give you a blink. You repeat this until your opponent is dead. I think it is unlikely that this exists in the game at any point live. I think there's no way this can be allowed to happen, and something will be done. I don't know what it is yet. I really hope it hits Flame Acolyte and not Thief of Moments, because I think Thief of Moments is really, really cool. But if by some miracle we get to tomorrow and no change has been made, this will be the best deck in the game. It won't be close. And sometimes you will just die. Often, I would say. So, hopefully that gets fixed. It's kind of comical that this did not get discovered. It seems pretty natural that you would check to see if maybe a card that gave you 0-mana spells went infinite. But, here we are. And with good luck, this got removed, and everything is chill. Okay? Oh, actually, I should also give credit. This took about 3.5 hours to 4 hours after all of these cards were revealed for someone to make this connection. They were Hapu, the former organizer of Team Wars, in the Duelyst official Discord. They said, hey, if I do Flame Acolyte Mana Forger Thief of Moments, don't I win? And then someone was like, you don't actually need Mana Forger because Blink costs 0. And here we are. So, if this happens to you, think of Hapu. I don't think it's Hapu's fault necessarily, but, you know, they asked for it. I've also noticed that Blink is covering the Songhai in the background, but, you know, such is life. Alright, next, Fluttercrane. 3 mana, 1/4, Songhai minion. After this moves or teleports, it gets... Sorry, let's retry that. I said teleports really, really weirdly. After this moves or teleports, it gains +2/+0 if it has 2 or less attack, and otherwise gains -2/+0. That's -2/-0, I would argue. And you draw a card. So, that's a little complicated. Let's try and break it down. This starts as a 3 mana 1/4. The first time it moves, it will become a 3 mana 3/4. Then the next time it moves, it will shrink back down and give you a card. That's really sweet. That's a super cool design. I don't think it's very good. 3 mana 3/4 is not good enough stats to see play. And the fact that it sometimes isn't that is pretty rough. You don't really want to spend resources on it, although if you are in a deck that is printing blinks with Thief of Moments, you can turn those into real cards at a sort of 1 to 2 rate, and that's pretty good. So I think it'll see play in that kind of deck, and won't see play outside of it. That's my general assessment. Drawing cards is good. Obviously, Songhai can draw cards that then move things, and you know you have Inner Focus to get movements in. We aren't going to probably be playing Mist Dragon Seal, but you could if you really wanted to. Backstep is 2 movements in 1 card, which gets you a card out of Fluttercrane. So, yeah, I think this card has reasonable potential. The stats are just quite low, and that's a little worrying. Next, we have Zendo, Ronin Lord. It is a 6 mana 4/6. And as I say that, if you aren't watching the video, some people will be quaking in their boots, because Zendo was a famous Duelyst 1 card for mind controlling your opponent into playing like an idiot. Not that that many opponents needed mind controlling. With, at the end of your turn, summon a Ronin Shade behind each enemy. Ronin Shades are 4/6s that disappear when they take damage. When this card was revealed, it was announced that the Ronin Shades would counterattack before they do this. And then, in this patch, they declared that it has changed. They have altered their decision, and no longer will they do so. I think that means that this card is bad. I think it was probably incredibly powerful before, but a lot of other factions have some incredibly powerful cards. Lionar has a pretty strong 6 mana card with 4 attack that I think is of comparable power level to a counter-attacky Zendo Ronin Lord. And I think now what will happen is your opponents will just spend a general attack to kill the one behind them, spend their minion attacks, play a hard removal spell on Zendo. Life sucks. If it doesn't get removed, that's pretty good. If it doesn't get removed, if you had an Archon, they'd take 8 damage. That's probably better than them taking 4 damage. Sometimes your Ronin Shades will stick, and then I strongly recommend Lightbendering them. Just because it's funny. Yeah, what else is there to say? I'm sad that they nerfed it before we even got to try it, given that they didn't nerf some other things that I think really deserved it, and didn't buff some other things that really deserved it. We'll get to that later. Kind of a joke. If Thief of Moments gets hit as well, this will be the second Songhai card of these 4 to be nerfed before release. I don't think Thief of Moments will be hit, but we'll see. Again, this is total conjecture. I think it's sad that Zendo isn't playable, because it's cool to be pushed in directions that aren't just like, oh, Herder, Spell High. And I'm not sure Zendo does it anymore. Like, I just don't think he goes in that sort of deck. You'd rather have an Archon, I mean, you can teleport into people and, you know, beat them up. Yeah. Such is life. Sorry, Zendo. Maybe they'll buff you back. Who knows? Probably not. Next, we have Vitruvian. And Vitruvian, we will start with a 2 mana 2/3 Chronomancer, which is an Arcanist, worth noting. With Opening Gambit, the next spell you play this turn costs 2 less. This is a 0 mana 2/3. Vitruvian is quite good at using cheap minions, and then playing a spell after it has played a bunch of cheap minions. Syzygy and Inner Oasis are sort of prime examples of this. Syzygy, you can use this to just like hold an attack or health buff. 5/3 is a good set line, 2/6 is a good set line. You're probably not going to give it blast, but generally just sort of really, really helps Zuvet out. It also, notably, buffs Time Maelstrom. Because before, if you had an empty board and 3 Time Maelstroms in hand, or were likely to draw your Time Maelstroms with your other Time Maelstroms, you were going to do 8 damage to the enemy general. And now, if you have some Chronomancers mixed in there, that number goes up a lot. 2 Chronomancers, you find sort of in the middle of that combo, you're looking at like 14 damage. That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? I think Chronomancer is definitely the best Vitruvian card in this expansion. I'd say definitely top 5 cards in this expansion. You might not play it in every Vet deck, because some might mystically not want it, but it's a 2-mana 2/3, so you don't need that much for it to be good, and giving you 2 mana back is a really nice way to, you know, have a good time. I've seen some buzz about using it with Cosmic Flesh. I'm not super keen on that, because that involves putting Cosmic Flesh in your deck, and I don't think that card's very good. I'd rather just stick to Inner Oasis and Syzygy, and maybe Maelstrom. And First Wish, obviously. A 2-mana 3/4. Doesn't even cost you the extra card, because you get a refund with First Wish. That card's pretty good. We play a 2-mana 4/3, and I think a 2-mana 3/4 is almost as good. Next, 5-mana artifact. Equinox Hourglass. It's got Timeless, which is good for this one. It's really important for this card, because your general wants to be up in the action, because its other text is at the start of your turn, and when this is equipped, so when you play it, summon Wind Dervishes in front and behind your general. There's a word missing here. It should be in front of, but I assume that will be caught in the release. I'm looking at some sort of earlier versions of these cards. I have no idea how to rate this card. It's really interesting. I think it's pretty good. So for 5 mana, you get the 2 dervishes that you get to throw wherever you like. If you have a Fireblaze Obelisk, that's like a massive swing. If you don't, it's still alright. You can use your general to punch something, you don't lose your artifact charge, and now they get to pick, you know, they've got to try and get you down, get your artifact off, because if they don't, you know, you'll get more dervishes. Or they can try and sort of block you in, right? They can try and stand in the space in front of your general and put a guy in the space behind your general, and then you don't get any dervishes. That's so sad. Except, of course, Vitruvian has Syzygy to give things blast, or Entropic Decay to just sort of kill things in a line, and can generally punish people for that positioning. Even Star's Fury. If you move your general, now there's 2 Star's Fury spots there. So I think this card is pretty sweet, because it encourages a lot of the sort of tricky Vitruvian play, where it's like, are you going to play around this? Well, then you're going to play into this, you know, gotcha. Giving your opponent catch-22 is one of my favorite parts of a faction, and I think Equinox Hourglass does it pretty well. Where your opponent gets to make dynamic decisions throughout the game, and you get to sort of respond to them. That sounds much less good than I sort of think of it in my head. But I think it's cool that Vitruvian has this sort of identity, and I think Hourglass is a good way to reinforce it. I'm not 100% it'll like see play in all the Vitruvian decks. I think that's unlikely. I'm not sure it goes in Artivet, because it relies on your general being pretty close. I don't think it goes in Zoo, because it's a lot of mana to spend on like not permanent guys. But maybe it does, and maybe sort of generic mid-range Vitruvian decks want to play it as well. Good stuff. Next, Fusion Banshee. A 6-mana 5/1 with Rush, Blast, and a downside, sorry guys, deals no damage to generals. So before we talk about this card's like ability, I would like to talk about its name, because I think that Fusion Banshee is like the greatest name a Duelyst card has. It's so clean, so cool. If you're not a native English speaker, fusion here isn't referring to like two things combining. It's referring, well, I mean, it kind of is. It's referring to nuclear fusion. So you've got a sort of cool science fiction word, well, not science fiction, but like a physics word, and a fantasy word, banshee. You stick them together, you get a Vitruvian card. Makes sense. In terms of play, this card's interesting. It's like definitely must remove because it's really hard to build a board in the face of like blast things. It does a lot the turn it's played, but it does not kill people. And if people are playing around it, it's like gonna kill a guy, and you spent 6 mana on it, and it might not kill a guy if it's too big, and then they ping it down and it dies. It's kind of awkward. Otherwise, I think it's yeah. It is notable that I think Vitruvian doesn't really have a great set of tools to help itself bridge into the late game, which is by design, because Time Maelstrom is like a fucked up piece of digital cardboard, and so Vitruvian's tools to get to Time Maelstrom reliably kind of have to be bad. But this is a tool for that if you are looking for one and you're a little desperate. So yeah, play Fusion Banshee. Gets a lot better after an Inner Oasis if you can sort of get that in there somehow. Wears First Wish as well to get to 6 attack. That's a nice breakpoint. Good stuff. Who doesn't love Fusion Banshee? Don't necessarily play it, but cool card nonetheless. Now we have a stinker. Sorry, spoilers. 6 mana, 06, Soulstone Obelisk. Gateway, that's the sort of classic obelisk keyword. Opening Gambit, destroy a minion. Dying Wish, resummon it on this space for its owner. So, the reason I'm not thrilled with this card, it is a 6 mana card. It kills the thing when it shows up, and it gives you an obelisk. That's pretty good. But if it dies, they get the thing back. And a lot of factions are quite good at killing obelisks. This expansion pushes people a lot more to playing hard removal, because you need to deal with 4 11s consistently, or you're just going to get owned. Right? And the upside is you spent 6 mana on a 2 mana card plus a 4 mana card. That's roughly what killing a minion is worth. See Dark Terminus, you get minor upside there. And that's if it lives for the whole game, which seems optimistic. I will note Fountain of Youth on this card sort of resets it and means it won't give anything back when it dies. But this card is not good. Please do not put it in your decks. Actually, okay, another thing that you can do, you can kill your own stuff. Really don't do that. Spend 6 mana to kill your own Amara and really hope they don't ever dispel. You spent 12 mana to hit someone for 5 and gain 5. I think you can do better than that, respectfully. So yeah, dear viewer, if you're thinking about putting Soulstone Obelisk in your deck, just like, you know, think about like maybe calling your parents or something. You know they'd love it. Okay, Abyssium. We're going to start with some changes to some core Abyssian cards, because it's going to be hard to discuss the new ones without this context. And these changes are all to do with the fact that Shadow Creep has been reworked. So before, Shadow Creep was a tile that said deal 3 damage to enemies standing... No, not deal 3. Deal X damage to enemies standing on it, where X is the amount of Shadow Creep you have. And so, like, you'd play a Shadow Nova, which made 4 Shadow Creep, and they would do 4 damage, and then the next time you played one, they would do 8, and then the next time they would do 12. This was pretty hard to make new cards for, because they sort of scaled really hard, and so Dreamsloth have made the admirable decision to change it, to not do that. Instead, it's just always 3 damage. So your first creep are better, and after that, they're worse. Your first 2 creep, I should say, are better. But the cards have changed to generate it, so let's talk about them. Abyssal Crawler is a 1 mana 3/1. At the end of your turn, create a Shadow Creep tile under this unit. So this is interesting. I think this is a really, really cool card now. Because you want Shadow Creep to be in useful spots. You want it to take up space. You want people to not stand on it. But Abyssal Crawler, of course, is a 1 mana creature with 1 health. So it's not massively survivable. So there's this cool tension between trying to keep it alive, but also trying to get the creep in spots that you want creep in. So I think it's cool. I think it'll probably go in Shadow Creep decks. Generally, yeah, nice stuff. What a guy. 3 attack on a 1-drop. I mean, you know, Abyssian, we make jokes about how, hey, their attack is higher than their health. Ha ha ha. But it is. 3 attack is a lot. I think you're going to be pretty happy to put this in your creep decks. I think you might be less happy about Abyssal Juggernaut. This is now a 3-mana 1/1, which has +1/+1 for each of your Shadow Creep tiles. This will remind you of Darkspine Elemental, I imagine. It's big in the late game, I think. The creep generation seems pretty good. You're usually, like, some cards are sort of generating 2, and then some of them are generating 1, and then some of them are generating 4. I think it'll reasonably often be quite large. I just worry that the time you want, like, a big 3-mana dude is not the end of the game. Especially in Abyssian, where you have a really good 7-drop you want to be playing, because you could literally never play Abyssal Juggernaut and Spectral Revenant in the same turn, unless you have mana cheated somehow, with a Darkfire Sacrifice or an Elder Chain Cultist. It will be big. That's pretty good. If Creep is like really looking to just go over the top of other decks, you might play Juggernaut to sort of increase your threat density. But I'm not sure that'll be relevant. Next, we have Shadow Nova. 5-mana spell. Exactly the same wording as it was before. Create Shadow Creep tiles on a 2x2 area. So you get 4 creep. It's pretty good. It's a 5-mana removals, like AoE sort of damage spell. You'll play this in creep. You probably won't play it outside of creep, although playing Shadow Novas means you might want to play creep. Yeah, it's hard to really talk about it. It used to be the card that defined the archetype, and I still think it kind of is. But yeah, cool. Happy with the change. Next, we have Darkspine Elemental. Formerly the sort of Juggernaut slot, where it got really big the more creep you had. Now it is a 2-mana 2/2, with when this damages a unit, create a Shadow Creep tile on its space, not this space. That's another printing error. So it creates a Shadow Creep tile under the thing it hits. This means it's effectively a 2-mana 5/2, with some like niche cases where like, yeah, you can't move out of a Silverguard Knight range until this has killed it. But that's a lot of attack on a 2-drop. You'll play this in creep. I think that's roughly what Darkspine Elemental is up to. It kills Silverguards in 1 hit, which is probably going to be important, because I foresee Lyo being the deck to beat. Also, actually, I should mention with Shadow Creep, Abyssian already clowns on obelisks, because of Night Sorrow Assassin, just eating them for free. 3 damage Shadow Creep in the early game is also obscenely good at killing obelisks. They can't move off it, so you place a Shadow Creep tile underneath one, you end your turn, it takes 3 damage, and then next you may get 1 more Dervish off it, and then next time you end your turn, it dies. They can't even dispel the tile to get rid of it, because that will dispel the obelisk. Just like kind of rough. So yeah. If you think you're going to be playing a lot of Abyssian, and I think you are, you might not want to queue up with obelisks, although I've made it pretty clear that my stance on obelisks is quite negative in general, so I'm not too sad about it. Give me 1 moment, and then we'll go on to the next one. So, sorry about that. New cards for Abyssian. What we're all really excited about for. So let's start with the 1 card that doesn't mention Shadow Creep, because I just spent ages talking about Shadow Creep. Infernal Pact. It is a 0-mana artifact with Timeless. It says, at the end of your turn, take 2 damage and draw 2 cards. Notably, it's Timeless. This means that the 2 damage it deals to you won't damage its durability. Also note that this is 0-mana draw 2. You take damage, which is bad. I will not argue the fact that losing life in Duelyst is a lot worse than it is in most other card games. Your life is important because it is a board control tool. But it is giving you so many cards. You're drawing 4 cards when you end your turn with an Infernal Pact played. In a super low to the ground Abyssian deck, I think this card will be fantastic. The sort of thing that was thinking about playing Rite of the Undervault before. I'm not sure that deck will be good necessarily, but Infernal Pact is a really, 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 really strong reason to try it, because it's just a massive amount of cards, and also it means that you're so likely to like find a Deathwatch payoff once you've vomited your hand, because you're looking now at 4 new cards plus a replace. Playing 2 of them at once is a little scary. That starts killing you really fast. Maybe think about that. Abyssinian has some infection healing. You're probably playing Void Pulse in this kind of deck just because it's a 1 mana spell. Yeah, Infernal Pact. Hey, pretty good card. Next. 1 mana, Abyssinian spell, New Moon Hex. This is a really boring text box, okay? Doesn't say anything, really. Equip a Hex Charm artifact to the opposing general. There's a typo here, opponent general, not quite right. Well, Smarty, you may ask, what does Hex Charm do? And that's easy, of course. It doesn't lose durability during your opponent's turn, so it's got anti-timeless. On their turn, and remember, this is, so it doesn't lose durability on the turn of the person who played New Moon Hex. On your own turn, if you're wearing the Hex Charm, if you've been given the charm, you can get it off. But not the other way around. Like, you can't... Your opponent punching you a bunch while you have this on does not get it off any faster. So usually, it's going to take a while to sort of fall off. At the start of your turn, your general takes 1 damage and creates a shadow creep, an enemy shadow creep tile under it. So, kind of odd. So you're going to start your turn, you're going to take 1 damage. This will lose a durability on your Hex Charm. And then you will get a shadow creep tile under you. This will probably prompt you to move. So then it's done 1 damage to you. And then you're going to punch something, so you'll use another durability on your Hex Charm. And then the turn after that, like on your next turn, because your opponent can't get any durability off when they punch you up, while they beat you up, then it'll fall off, do 1 more damage, make another shadow creep. So it's 1 mana, make 2 creep, deal 2 damage to you, and like force you to move a bit. Usually. That's pretty good, I think. I think New Moon Hex will go in creep decks. It's hard to talk about creep without talking about the payoff, but we're talking about the payoff last. So if you're, watching my video, paying attention, go read that now and then think about this card. I think it's going to be pretty good. It's a little awkward, but it's legendary. It's going to be sort of a pain to have, like a 1 mana legendary spell. It makes sense given all the words on it, and it's kind of complicated, but it's going to be a lot of spirit if you really want to get into creep. And creep was sort of helpful for being really cheap beforehand. So that's a little sad, but I think this card's fine. Next, let's get to a real banger, okay? This card's great. 2 mana, Sphere of Darkness, Abyssinian spell. Create a shadow creep tile. Nice. This is Phoenix Fire, but it makes a sort of spike under it, and nobody can stand on things that have been Phoenix Fired. Again. It's a little slower, like it's a little worse than Phoenix Fire in the damage sense, because it does the damage later, so again, you can get sort of trapped by provokes. But generally, this card is better than Phoenix Fire. If you want 2 mana, deal 3, and you probably do, especially in Abyssinian, because your early game is really sucky at being proactive. Although Darkstone Elemental does make that a lot better. So, well, if you're playing creep, you won't. If you're playing creep, you definitely play this. If you aren't playing creep, you still might, because it's just sort of a nice, very versatile card. Yeah. Glowing reviews on Sphere of Darkness is what it is. Next, Night Splitter. 5 mana, 5/5. Opening Gambit. Allied Shadow Creep tiles heal allies 1 space away for 3, and deal 3 damage to enemies 1 space away. So what that means is, if you are next to a Shadow Creep, and next means orthogonally, diagonals do not count, those are 2 spaces away. Shadow Creep you are next to, like above, below, directly left or directly right of, not the corners, all of them will do a thing. It'll be bad for enemies and good for allies. It's reasonably easy to heal your general for like 6 with this by standing in a corner of a Nova. It's reasonably easy to do damage to a lot of the enemies with this. I think this card's pretty awesome. It's very powerful. Once you've got a sort of, a couple of Novas down, it really keeps your opponent on the move. They don't want to even stand next to Shadow Creep, but that means that like the next time you make Shadow Creep, it's going to be even harder to get away from. I think it's pretty good. Yeah. I don't think it's like as completely ridiculous as I've heard people worry about, but I could be wrong because it is definitely like obscenely impactful once it's been set up. I just think that some of the other things in this expansion might be able to sort of make life difficult for it, and some decks can sort of just like power through what Creep's trying to do. Like Heal Lionar, for example, is like, oh yeah, you did 6 damage to my general, that sucks. Call me next year and maybe I'll care. So, we'll see. Abyssian, traditionally, has been very strong into Lionar. But maybe that changes. I don't know. I think Night Split is really good. You play it in Creep, you don't play it in not Creep. Great stuff. Also, actually, I should mention, Demonic Lore got a way better. Because before, you didn't really have much Creep early, so luring a thing onto Creep was like, and you do 1 extra damage to it at the end. But now Demonic Lore, if you have any Creep tile that's free anywhere, is 2 mana deal 4 to a minion. Or you can put it in like a corner if you want to. So lore stocks have risen with this expansion. I think most Abyss decks will be playing Sphere of Darkness and lore, just like regardless of anything else you're doing. So think about that. And Repulsive Beast is like a crappy lore. So think about that as well if you want more. It's pretty funny. Excellent. Next. Magmar. So let's begin. One viewer, and they know who they are, is pretty happy with this. It is Invigoration. It is a 1 mana spell called... No, it's not Invigoration. Sorry, I lied. That's its old name. I did name it a Duelyst card. I'm sorry. 1 mana. Immortal Resolve. Give your general +1/+0 this turn. Heal your general for 2, and shuffle a copy of this into your deck. This card's pretty bad, I think. Super slow control Magmar. Like, the issue with some control Magmars is that it can be hard to play 2 cards in 1 turn. This card helps with that because it's really cheap. It does, it does a lot of nice things. In the early game, you get a punch a 2-drop. Heal up the damage you're going to take off it. I don't like that it shuffles back into your deck. I get why some people are like, oh, this is upside, but this is not a card you want to draw late game. So, yeah, I don't know. Generally unenthused. It's half a Sun Drop, but like you get the attack boost, but then when you want to Sun Drop heal, you don't really need the attack boost at that point, and like fairly often you won't take any damage, and it's just like as you kill your first 2-drop, your first 2/3 of the game, you haven't taken any damage yet, and this card feels pretty bad to play then. Yeah, I don't know. Go have fun, people who like having Vath with lots of attack. There's also something to be said that it's funny to put into your opponent's deck, if you can manage that, because they can't get rid of it either. And with both generals, just have lots of these floating around. That's, like, kind of hilarious. Actually, you can probably, if you can, like, arrange it, you can probably get your opponents, like, a game that just can never end, assuming both players are trying. And that's kind of hilarious. Okay, so actually go do that instead. Anything else to say, really? Against, like, super slow fatigue decks, it's good because it replaces itself in your deck. But I don't think there are any of those anymore, especially with the new Radiant standard. So, yeah. Sorry, Immortal Resolve. I don't think you're very good. Next, Godhammer. It is a 2-mana artifact with Timeless, and your minions have Grow +1/+1. Oh, Grow. This is so unfortunate. Godhammer cost 1 mana in Duelyst 1, and it wasn't very good. I'm not very interested in paying 1 more mana for Timeless. Also, Grow is just like, Grow is not good. You get all these dudes, and you're like, I really hope you don't kill them while they're understated, because they're gonna stay small for a bit, and then them will get big. But like, I'm magma, so I can't move them closer to you manually. I've just got to I've only got to do it manually. I can only walk them at you, and like that gives you so much time unless I put them close to you, at which point they just die, and it's just rough. I feel bad for grow minions. Godhammer lets your things that don't grow. Some minions get a lot better with this. You hit, health breakpoints, you start getting 4 toughness minions to 5 attack, like 4 health to 5, and you're like, ooh, this Phalanx is actually kind of huge. But I don't think it's worth it. I could be wrong. I think there's like a reasonable chance that some sort of swarmy magma deck plays Godhammers and is just totally ridiculous. I think it's a low chance, but hey, it might happen, in which case Godhammer will be good. But yeah, generally, not super keen on it. Next, Generation Scribe. 2 mana, 3/2. Hearth Sister stats. With an opening gambit. Oh my god, it is Hearth Sister. Activate the start of turn and end of turn effects of an allied minion. So, that means that grow minions will grow. It means that Bone Reaper will deal damage. And most importantly here, it means that eggs will hatch. Even if there was an egg that was made this turn. And in Duelyst 2, of course, when you hatch an egg, it has Rush. Like the thing that comes out of it. So if you can suicide a Veteran Silithar into something, and then play this Generation Scribe, you have a now active Veteran Silithar. That's pretty good. I did misread this card when I first saw it, and thought it activated the start and end of turn effects of all allied minions. It does not do this, otherwise Chrysalis Burst would have been, like, would have gone from, oh, this is a funny card, to, oh dear, this is, like, running the game overnight. So we're glad it doesn't do that. Hatch eggs with it, have a good time. That's mostly what it's for, I think. What other memes are there? Astral Crusader is funny. Do that, I guess, if you want to. I think this card's pretty good if you're playing young and veteran Silithar. So, if you're on that, happy for you. Also, actually, Progenitor lets you hatch an egg, get something done with it immediately. Not necessarily sure that's good, but hey, why not? Next, our last Magma card. So we've gone from a 1 mana card to a 2 mana card to a 2 mana card, and now we're hitting 8. Because it is Sky Carrier. It is a 8 mana 7/7 that says your cards cost 3. I'm unsure how this works with modification, like Flash Reincarnation, although Flash Reincarnation obviously not very good after having played this, or Kujata. I do know it's bad. Sorry, Sky Carrier. You're an 8 mana minion but doesn't do anything the turn you play it. Also, hilariously, all of the cards that you're released with get worse when they're played alongside you. Flashing Sky Carrier out is like kind of scary, I guess. But the issue is that you can't rely on you can't build your deck to rely on having Sky Carrier on board because it's really easy to kill and also very expensive. And that means that you're just sort of forced to play a bunch of cards like Flash and Natural Selection that get worse with Sky Carrier on board. So, yeah. This card's bad. Play it if you like fun. You can do things like play Mechantrum, and Fractal Replication it, and then Fractal Replication it, and now you have 20 power of Rush minions if this sticks. So, it'll be fun. You'll get highlight clips. I promise you it won't be good. Excellent. Next. And the last faction is Vanar. If you thought Magma was funny for going 1, 2, 2, 8, Vanar here goes 1, 1, 1, 9. So let's get started. With Another Life. 1 mana Vanar spell. Transform your general into a Night Howler until your next turn. If it would be destroyed, transform it back instead. Night Howlers are 3/4s. They're still your general, so they still get affected by the same things that affect generals. They do not get affected by things that affect minions. Yeah. I don't think this card's very good. It doesn't do much for 1 mana. It's like a Winterblade, you know? You get a buff, except you only get it for 1 turn. It protects your health bar a little bit, but not really. Yeah. I'm willing to be convinced, but I'm reasonably sure this card's bad. Apparently it took a lot of work to code. I'm willing to believe it. It seems complicated. I'm excited to find some bugs that, or Noadne, uncovers. But, yeah, if you're trying to win, probably just don't put this in your deck. Sorry, guys. Cool card. Bit of a miss. Next, we have Grandfather Clock. Affectionately, people have taken to removing the L in Duelyst Official because they think it's funny, and so do I. It is a 1-mana artifact. It is timeless. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to the enemy general. So, actually, I feel like I need to talk about this card quite a bit, because there's been a lot of discussion. I think a lot of people are misevaluating it. This card kills people. Not necessarily super well, but that's fine. You play it. If you play it alongside a lot of other cards that kill people, it will help kill them. It will be good. Or passable. Aggro Vanar will play it. Aggro Vanar isn't a very good deck. That's probably roughly where we are. You do not want to play this in a slow Vanar deck, because it is a 1-mana card, and if your opponent's... Like, it is a card, sorry. It's 1 mana, so it's cheap in mana, but it is a card you spend that's not doing something else, that in many matchups won't do anything. If your opponent's health bar isn't relevant to whether or not you're going to win or lose, like, if they're the aggro deck and they're just kind of beating you up, and if you live through being beaten up, you'll win, and if you don't, you'll lose, Grandfather Clock doesn't do anything. Like, it's just blank. So put it in decks where you are consistently going to care about your opponent's life total. Don't put it in decks where you won't. Thank you. Grandfather Clock. I don't think it's great. Oh, actually, another thing I should mention. This is the second 1-mana Vanar artifact. Vanar also has a bunch of 1-mana spells, as seen here. So Songweaver Vanar is pretty well supported. There's a lot going on. A lot of incredible ways to... Well, not incredible. Songweaver's really good if you're drawing cards with it. So maybe Songweaver Vanar is a thing you can play, and it'll only be slightly bad. Or maybe even good, because it was only slightly bad before, actually. So, yeah. Good. Hopefully. Give it a go. Next, we have Bluster, a 1-mana spell. Each allied minion deals 1 damage to each enemy minion nearby it. So... this is probably the card I am least sure of on where its power level is. It can do a lot of damage in the tokeny sort of Walls Vanar deck. I'm not sure the Walls Vanar deck needs it to do damage. I'm not sure that's what they're really after necessarily. But if they are, and they might be, especially given the sort of context where I think we're going to be playing a lot of 6-drops, or maybe dying on 7 mana if the Infinite doesn't get fixed, doing damage to things for 1 mana is good. I'm going to try it in Walls. I'm expecting to be somewhat impressed, and then not put it in other Walls decks afterwards. But maybe this card's fantastic. I could totally see it. Like, Bluster could be like one of the best cards in this expansion. It's totally reasonable to me that that's one of the cases that sort of occurs after we've had like a month or two with these cards. Because it's 1 mana for potentially, like reasonably easily 8 damage. And that's hard to say no to. I'm kind of convinced that this card's just good now. We'll see. Next, for 9 mana, we have a 5/6 minion, Embla Forever. And boy, is she cool. And not just because she's in Vanar. Her opening gambit is stun all enemies. You accrue mana crystals beyond 9. Accrue, of course, here means get or gain. I don't know why they picked accrue as a word. I think it's probably because one of the devs wanted to sound educated. But I think it's nice to remember that some people don't know these words, especially if you're not a native English speaker. This question got asked a bunch in the Discord server immediately when this card came out. I think it's kind of shitty for the devs to just use a fancy word instead of using a not fancy word, when a not fancy word would totally work and wouldn't alienate anyone. So, hey, think about that one, guys. This will come up again later, actually. So, stunning all enemies is pretty good. It's not like game-winning, necessarily, but it's pretty good. Buys you a lot of time. It's hard to die from, like, reasonably healthy if everything's stunned. The mana crystal accumulation is also pretty cool. Notably, it does not remain if Embla goes away. So that's not... Okay, that's not quite true. If you've gained a mana crystal past 9, you have it forever. I think. Actually, I don't know this. Well, I'm going to pretend like that's true, because it better be. Bloody hell. But, if Embla leaves play, you can't gain any more. You need one of the Emblas in play to continue going up, right? Notably, Vanar has a couple of funny 11 mana combos with Embla. You can play Embla and then cast Aspect of a Worm on her to pick her up, and then do it again next turn. Or you can Hailstone Prison to do the same thing if you don't, if you have no better option. That's pretty fun. Some decks just get absolutely hosed by Embla and will kind of lose in the same way that you lose to Time Maelstrom. Some decks won't. If the deck really doesn't care, Embla's atrocious. Against Time Maelstrom, their decks, Embla is terrible, because what happens is they play Time Maelstrom, and that's their stun turn, and then they have a totally real turn afterwards. So, yeah. That can be really bad. That being said, I think Embla's quite strong. I think the issue with Embla is mostly that Vanar is not good at getting to 9 mana. Most of their tools are very high tempo, but sort of low efficiency, and it can be hard to, against faster decks, make it to 9. And even if you do, Embla might not bail you out if they're playing like burn spells. So, I think Embla's really cool. I'm a huge fan of this card. I definitely want to try it, but I'm not convinced she'll have a home. And I think that's more generous than most people are on Embla. I think the general consensus is that Embla is quite bad. And I'm willing to believe it. I could totally be sort of off my rocker. Anything else I need to mention? Mobius is funny. Do that. Play a 20 man 2020. Just for shits and gigs. Yeah. Alright. Neutrals. Oh, I have not nice things to say about 3 of these. Let's start with Refurbisher. It is a 2 mana 1/4 with Opening Gambit. Restore 1 durability to your artifacts. Did you know that Vesruvian had this card? In an earlier build of Duelyst 2? It was called Imperial Mechanist. It was a 2 mana 1/4. And it restored your artifacts to full durability. Do you know what happened to Imperial Mechanist? In the Artifact faction, I might add. The one that ostensibly cares the most about artifacts and has artifacts that it might want to heal. It got removed and replaced with Imperial Saboteur because no one was playing it. It was better than Refurbisher because it restored them to full rather than just +1. Refurbisher will not go in any real deck. I'm reasonably confident. I will say, Refurbisher wears Cosmic Flesh pretty well, becomes a 2/7. It wears Syzygy buffs pretty well, becomes like a 4/4. Wears First Wish pretty well. But we have historical precedent this card is bad, and I'm willing to believe it, you know? Sometimes it's just what you gotta do. You gotta be like, oh yeah, here's the time in the past when this card wasn't good. I'm gonna understand that that's still gonna be true. The game is going to be a higher power level than it was the last time we had this card, and we are still not putting it in our deck, because it is just as bad. Sorry. Alright, next one, and I like this card quite a bit. Verdmother, a 3 mana 2/5, with Opening Gambit, put a Verdkin into your action bar. So, what's a Verdkin? Well, smarty, you may ask, I don't see a Verdkin token. That's because this token, Puka, is meant to be called Verdkin. It will be on live. It is a 1 mana 2/1 with Provoke that dispels any unit that deals damage to this. So you punch it, you get dispelled. Your Ironcliff punches it, your Ironcliff gets dispelled. I think Third Mother's pretty good. Neutral 3-drops have often sort of struggled to, like, find a home because you don't need any the same way you need 2-drops. And they're categorically kind of awkward, like Chaos Elemental and Sworn of Ender, I'd say, are the two sort of big standouts of the cards you might want to play on your first turn. Third Mother's pretty big, it's a 2/5. That's a nice stat line. And it gives you a card, you can replace Puka if you don't want it, you can play Puka alongside, like, Syzygy later. If you're a Zoo Vitruvian deck, you can play it alongside other buffs. If you're anything else, Provoke's kind of annoying on a 2/1. It usually means you're wasting a damage because you're hitting a general into it. Or like dispelling something that doesn't really want to get dispelled. Cheap Provokes are good. I think Provoke is a really good keyword to have in the game. It's very skill testing. Lets you punish bad positioning. Lets you, like, position well yourself and get rewarded. So I think Third Mother is pretty good. I hope it's playable. I think Third Mother is either going to be, like, I don't know. It's either going to be, like, not quite good enough for a lot of decks, or it will go in a lot of decks. I'm not sure there's, like, a middle ground where Third Mother goes in our deck and nowhere else. It's pretty cool. Pretty happy with it. Of the neutrals, my favorite. Next, we have Emissary of Chaos. It is a 7-mana 1/7 with Opening Gambit and Dying Wish. Randomly permute the costs of cards in all action bars. Many people in Duelyst Official have come in and asked, what does permute mean? Because it turns out this word doesn't come up very often. I, in fact, had never seen it. I had to reverse engineer from the word permutation. Permute means shuffle or rearrange. Yes, this is another example of why use simple word when complex word do trick. Use words that your audience will understand. Some people who play this game don't speak English natively, and they're going to be totally screwed because they won't even have permutation to get back into. What the hell? This was so easy to not do. Okay, let's talk about the card now. It's bad. Great. Shuffling the cost of cards in your hand is pretty random, and it's, you know, probably good, but this card is a 7-mana 1/7, which is really bad. That's just an awful stat line. I would probably not pay... You can pay 3 mana for a 1/7, actually, with, like, massive upside, with Portal Guardian. So, yeah. I will say, because this is extremely funny to me, occasionally, if you are playing Vitruvian, in particular, and you play this card with a Siphon Energy and a Time Maelstrom in your hand, you will be able to immediately take another turn. That might win you some games. So, yeah. If you want to use this, play Vitruvian and get lucky. Next, Eternity Sage. I love this card because I sort of helped design it. I should give that context, actually. So, a couple of months ago, Dio posted in the Duelyst Official, Dio being one of the devs, a card that was like a 7-mana 5/7. It equipped a random artifact to your general when it entered the battlefield, when it opening gambited, sorry, and when it died, it had Dying Wish, destroy an artifact to resummon this. People threw a hissy fit because they were like, this card's really high variance. Sometimes you'll get a Sunstone Braces, and sometimes you'll get an Arclight Regalia. And I, as part of me throwing my hissy fit, I wasn't above this, decided to make, as a joke, in a custom card competition, that card, but fixed. I just made the artifact that gave always a 3-attack artifact. And then Dio saw that and was like, hey, can I put this card in the game? I'll name it Smarty. And I said, sure, I'd love that. And then Dio went and did it. Except it's not called Smarty, because apparently some Kickstarter backers would be grumpy. I don't know about that one. I'm obviously literally the only person who's mad about it being called Eternity Sage, but I'm still mad about it, okay? And I will make my voice heard. Blah, blah, blah. It's also way worse. Oh, actually, I should have mentioned what the Eternity Core is. I should have gotten the token, but I did not, and it's too late now, so here we are. The Eternity Core is an artifact which is timeless and gives your general +1/+0. If you're thinking this is a 7 mana 4/5, and I was thinking that the Eternity Core would be really good because otherwise this card was bad, and when you heard that, and you're like, ugh, that's roughly where I am. The stats are just so low. Like, so low. Like, who even cares if it gets resummoned? It's like a 7 mana 4/10 that equipped an artifact that's pretty bad. People don't play Pandora, and that is, like, significantly less good than Pandora. The sort of golden standard for 7-drops is Red Sinja, which sees play occasionally and basically exactly Lionar. And this card does not at all compete with Red Sinja, even though it's got a similar niche, because you want your general to be tussling with things to get value out of this. So yeah, this card sucks. I hope they buff it, because I'm quite attached to it as like a human being. Also, I'm responsible for not being Exune. It is not a Manticore with a fiery mane, because I thought this card was going to be designed in, well, in my name image, and as such wanted a slightly more fitting sprite for what I felt. But that's neither here nor there. Eternity Sage is what it is, and it's not very good. Sorry about that. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some balance changes. Saberspine Seal. I've given... That's embarrassing. Okay. Saberspine Seal is a 1-mana spell that gives a unit +2/+0 this turn. It used to give +3, and I've grabbed the wrong one. That's funny. Okay, so ignore this 3, pretend it's a 2. I think Saberspine Seal is not very good anymore. You might still play it, especially in the sort of burnier decks. It was incredibly efficient before, and I can see why I got hit. It's less good now. You'll play it sometimes, you won't play it sometimes. Good to cast on a Sword of Mechazor to Frenzy. Yeah. That's about it, to be honest. What's next? Alright, sorry about that. It is Kinetic Equilibrium, which is a 2-mana Magmar spell. Used to be 3 mana. Deal 2 damage to minions in a 3/3 area, and give allied minions in that area +2/+0. Now it's kind of like a localized Tempest. That doesn't do phase damage, but that's fine. Usually if you're playing Tempest, you aren't really in the phase damage market. And it buffs allied minions that it doesn't kill. And usually you can opt out of it hitting minions you don't want it to hit. So I think this card's really, really strong. Incidentally, it absolutely obliterates walls, which is pretty funny, because Magmar has not struggled for ways to absolutely obliterate walls, and this is yet another thing. So you'll probably see it in most Magmar decks, or at least the ones that would be thinking about playing sort of cheap AoE. And you will definitely be seeing it in crab decks. Yeah, what's it called? Deck Apotheosis. Because this clones every crab it hits, it splits them, and it gives them attack. And usually the issue of crab decks is you are trying to get them to have power. So, getting more attack onto your crabs is really strong. You'll see it in that. Last, we have White Worm. This is the token that Aspect of the Worm makes. It doesn't make it a 4/4 anymore, it makes it a 3/4. So now it's 2 mana, put a minion into its owner's hand, summon a 3/4 on the tile it used to... Well, no, transform a minion into a 3/4 and then put a copy of it into its owner's hand. It's still fantastic. I'm not a huge fan of this patch being made now, because walls... Like, it could have happened months ago and would have been totally reasonable, but now Walls is in a less good spot, and also did not get much in this expansion, and a lot of other factions got a lot of tools that make Walls' life difficult. So, it's a little tone deaf to do it so late, but Aspect of the Worm was incredible, and now it's slightly less incredible. I think it still is a really strong pull towards playing, like, tokeny Vanar, because that's where it's absolutely at its best. Yeah, Saberspine Shield change, it's good. I think it means Songhai will be a lot weaker than it used to be. Saberspine Shield's a pretty key part of that deck killing people. Although, obviously, Songhai, no shortage of ways to kill people. It's just going to be a bit slower now. Equilibrium, just sort of, gets it done. And White Worm, you'll still play it. Now, if you're done. If you want to, be like, oh, this is Smarty's thoughts on the expansion, you can leave. I'm mostly done with that. I'm just gonna get on a soapbox for a second, okay? I've got you all here. I've got people watching my videos, so I'm gonna just start complaining about two cards that did not get changed, but I think probably should have. They are, of course, Divine Bond and Night Sorrow Assassin. Divine Bond, 3 mana. Lionar spell. Give a minion plus attack equal to its health. Previously, the best Bond target that Lionar decks were likely to play was Ironcliff Guardian, which did 13 damage after a Bond. Assuming it didn't take any damage, right? That's pretty chill. Pretty lethal. One of the ways you counterplay that was obviously suicide minions into enemy Ironcliffs to lower their attack, so you don't die to Bond. Now there's a new card which has 11 health and does 15 damage when it is hit by a Divine Bond. Not only that, but of course, it can heal itself with the spell it makes. So trading minions into it is actually really bad. Divine Bond was like this for a while at the start of the game's release, at the start of Duelyst 2. It got nerfed into a different form, which was totally less ridiculous and didn't randomly steal games. And then last month, it got changed back. For reasons best described as texture. Because Lionar midrange was boring, and you know what happened? People didn't play it because it's bad. But I still think that Bond being in the game is bad. Ironcliff should win the game because it is a 5 mana 3/10, and that really is just hard to kill and really annoying. It should not win the game because it is a 5 mana 13, well, an 8 mana, but sort of, funky about that. It is a 13/10 and kills you instantly because you didn't draw hard removal. This is obvious. They had the right idea the first time. This is a change that has happened. Alright, you can do it again. I believe in you. The change was made because the devs thought it might put, Lionar in a better, a more interesting place in this specific metagame that they were envisioning. It didn't do that, obviously, but, that's neither here nor there. But now we're in a totally new metagame, so we don't need to think about cultivating it exactly in this way, so we can just get rid of Divine Bond. We're still going to be experimenting. How does that sound? Alright, that's card number 1 done. Divine Bond can go fuck itself. Even though it's not very good, I'm obviously willing to admit that. It's just a card that shouldn't exist. Next, we have Night Sorrow Assassin, which is a 3 mana 3/1 minion, an Abyssian. You can tell because its health is higher than its health is lower than its attack. With opening gambit, destroy a nearby minion with 3 or less attack. Night Sorrow Assassin has a similar history to Divine Bond, where it started the game like this. And when it got changed, it became a 3 mana 4/2 with opening gambit, destroy a nearby damaged minion. Well, it actually became a 3/3 first, but that card was really ridiculous, so they made it a 4/2 after that. And then they changed it back. And the reason they changed it into Night Sorrow Assassin is, of course... Sorry, not into Night Sorrow Assassin. Into the, killer damage minion version, the punish version, because that's the card that did that in Duelyst 1, was because this card is really swingy. In some matchups, it kills 2-drops, and in those games, it's pretty good. 3 mana killer, 2 mana card, and you have a 3/1, that's alright. Abyssian is happy with it, because their late game's pretty good, and it's a good way to get into the late game. Awesome. In some matchups, it kills obelisks. That's pretty rough. It just kills them for free, Bye-bye Fireblaze. That sucks. Or Portal Guardian, which I guess is sort of an even trade, but, they got a 3/1 out of it, and it feels bad, because Portal Guardian's, one of the best cards in the game. And sometimes it kills Ironcliff Guardians for free. They don't even need to punch it. Right? It's very swingy in its matchups, and that's not super healthy for a card to have. It's like, oh yeah, I'm playing Abyssian, so I just have a better matchup against Lionar, not for any decision I made, because I was obviously going to play Night Sorrow. It's definitely good enough. But just, because this is the faction I picked, I'm randomly hosing some people, maybe who don't like. Oh, poor Obelisk vet doesn't even deserve it, you know. So we changed it to this punish card that, you know, worked against everything. With a ping, you know, there was meaningful counterplay, more meaningful than against this one because it both had to be nearby and damaged. So if you backlined something, they had to find a way to ping it before they found a way to kill it. Whereas now it's just like, oh, you hid your Silver Guard. That's cool. I will still kill it. It's basically impossible. You have to like absolutely hamstring your positioning in order to protect Silver Guard Knights from this thing now, even if like you're going second. It just sucks, right? And the reason for this is that maybe Abyssinian was a bit too good at killing, you know, high health minions, which is fine. That's like a reasonable valid change. But also because it's a nice way to like get Abyssinian's early game back on track, right? Sort of adds to texture again. But now Abyssinian has a bunch of other ways to get rid of sort of 2-drops, right? We have Shadow Bomb? No, that's not what it's called. Shadow Bomb's a Hearthstone card. It is Sphere of Darkness. You know, 2-mana killer, 3-drop, get a thing. Kind of like Nightstar Assassin if you think about it. And so Nightstar Assassin's job against the decks where it doesn't do much against is less impressive because there are many other cards covering that role. And its job against the decks where it is really good is still really strong. So it's even swingier. So yeah, maybe think about Night Sorrow and what you want out of it, because the card as it is just like it's not bad. It's just like unhealthy and a problem that was recognized and fixed and then unfixed for some unfathomable reason. Right? Like if you were going to change Night Sorrow again, you don't have to change it back to the card you knew was bad for the game. There are other options here. Please consider one. If you want, I can suggest, you know, I have reams of designs for both of these cards that I would be happy to share with the dev if they wanted it. But I don't want to, you know, go around forcing things on people, so yeah. Sorry about being a bit of a downer at the end of this video. I am still very excited for this expansion. I will be playing it as much as I can when it comes out, which is tomorrow for me, tomorrow evening. But I'm really looking forward to it. I probably won't stream tomorrow, depending on how things line up, but I guess I shouldn't talk about that, because that's not going to last very long. It will be outdated soon. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this expansion. Once some of the kinks get ironed out, I believe it'll happen. Duelyst 2 is a fantastic game. And, yeah, thanks everyone for watching, for sticking through even the moany bit at the end. Alright. And now I shall say goodbye.